Today we're going to build a game. Maybe today and tomorrow. Let's see how fast it's going to go. But it's going to be intense. So ask questions if something is going to be confusing, because I might go a bit fast in some parts, but let's see. The mock-up of the idea was here, and it's a very basic location-based game with a little small extra features. Idea is you have a start screen where you select the difficulty, and then depending on the difficulty it will generate for you to find some targets on the map. So your location will be visible somewhere, and also some kind of targets will be on the map. Some of those targets are going to be something you don't not want to find, something that is not important, but one of those targets is going to be the treasure, this Mopsi character. So the idea is to try to find it amongst these different locations, and there are going to be some kind of helpers along the way also. For example, one that will remove half of the unvisited targets, and one that gives you some kind of probabilities for how likely it is that the target is there or not. Okay. We start today in the directory where is Mopsi in Lamad, and we will start with some existing code there. Now don't worry about the existing code, because it's something you should be familiar with. It's only things that we have done in the past lectures. For example, we have the location handler.js file. This location handler.js file is what we did in the very first lecture, when we got the geolocation from the browser, and the geolocation is being updated every second with the highest possible accuracy. So this is what we will use to update the user's location. And when it updates, we will have to build a function what to do then. So that is still going to need to be implemented. The second file is the HTTP handler. And I'm not really sure we need this, at least not yet, but probably we will have use for it later. So it contains just the get and post HTTP request types, and if we use them, we will use this asynchronous mode so that we don't block the interface. The third is called measurement.js. This measurement file contains our Haversine function, the Euclidean function that we use to build the Haversine function, and all necessary functions that were used to calculate distance between 2 points in WJS format. So 2 points with latitude and longitude to get the distance. And note a small update, I now will return the distance in meters. So I multiplied the Earth's radius by 1000 to get a value in meters, because it's going to be more useful for us in this project. Right. Then we have main.js file. This is also very basic. It loads a Google map at some default location given here, and it prepares some global variables, a variable for the map, a variable for the user location marker, a variable for the targets, which we don't have yet here, but we will use a global variable for that for simplicity, and one variable that says if the game is still running or not. I have also here some function for initializing points. These points were copy-pasted from last week's lecture when we tried the APIs on them. And the function will call draw points, which makes markers with them and places them on the map. and these G targets, this G targets variable is going to be initialized with these points. This is not yet called the function, but it's here so that I have some kind of data to work with when I build the application. Okay, back to index HTML. We also include the Google map here, and I use my key for it. And I call, when the Google map has loaded, the main function, which is that one that initializes the map and puts some marker at some location. Finally, main CSS, it just contains, I think, yeah, it just contains CSS for making the map full screen, and that's more or less it. Okay. And inside the body we only have the map for the moment. If I go now to check the status of the project, it looks like that. So it just initializes the map at some predefined location here, somewhere relatively close to Science Park in Joensuu, and that's pretty much it. It also places the marker on the map. All the other functionality is not applied yet at the moment. I think we can begin by, trying to move this marker according to the user's location. So we will go now to the location handler file, and we will look at this location update, onLocation update function, which will need to be taught how to modify the location of that marker on the map. So to do that, we have to get the location from the event variable, and even though it's just simple access there, we need to parse it so that it's in a format that the Google marker will understand. So that format is new Google Maps LATLNG, and this one object will get two parameters: the value of the coords object from the event and its latitude, and also the longitude. Right. And we want to give this to the marker. So we have our global variable gMarker, set position, new location. So this should do it. We never tried this before, but putting the current location on the map should do something. And now to test it, I'm not going to go outside and I'm not going to use GPS in real. I'm going to fake the location. And if you go in Chrome, in this more tools, there's going to be sensors somewhere. And this sensors is going to give you things like geolocation, orientation, touch, some interesting things that you can override from the device functionality. I'm going to override the geolocation with Berlin, maybe. Okay, I'm going to refresh now the page. Nothing is happening. Okay, time to debug. So we have to check this on location update function. I'm going to put a breakpoint inside it, and I'm going to refresh the page, and it's not actually being called at all. Oh yes, I forgot to call the main function that starts everything, this initialize geolocation. This initialize geolocation has to be called, I would guess, once the map is initialized. So yeah, I think that should be no problem here. So we keep a variable. To see if this was indeed successful or not, and if it wasn't, we have to alert the user somehow. So I'm not going to go into too much details as to what the problem is, but I hope the user is smart enough to figure it out. Okay, try again. Okay, now the breakpoint is activated, so I am going into that function. I'm going to remove it and resume, and my marker is not there anymore. Hopefully it's somewhere in Germany. I think I clicked Berlin and then I modified the, okay. I clicked Berlin, but then I modified the latitude sometime. So you can see that the marker's location by some amount. You can see that the marker's location is changing in real time as this fake location is updating. So this is now simulating GPS, and I'm just going to use it for now. It's not a very good tool. I used to use the other one I showed you during the course, which was much better. It was allowing me to set these coordinates from the map, where I can actually see where I'm moving it. But this is quite a useful tool also. So for now, I'm just going to put it somewhere in Joensuu. So maybe I go here. A little bit. Just playing around with the coordinates. By the way, you don't need DA anymore, but to figure out the coordinates I was doing binary search, like sometimes going over, sometimes going back. Okay, so I'm going to move the location a bit north from here because I want to make sure it's not the default location where the map is going to be loading on. I think that is just fine. So it's far enough from Science Park to know that the geolocation is working and it's not giving some false readings there. Okay, but now let's put also some things on the map. So I'm going to go in my main function, and I'm just going to call this initialize points as well. So so let's see how the points look like. Okay. Okay, yes. It's correct, I think, but my location is now moving somewhere up, and the map is not updating with my current location. So we have to figure that out. But these are some points to work with anyway in Joensuu, and I'm going to make the map zoom just a bit more. Okay. Out when I refresh the page. So I want to see everything when I refresh the page. This will make my development much faster, so I don't have to worry about zooming in and out every time I want to test again. Yeah. And now we have some small issues because I have the points, but I forgot, I don't know where I am. So we have to make our markers look different. And for that, I actually prepared some visuals beforehand so that I have time to finish this today and tomorrow. And I will just implement the visual style of the markers here. So basically, for the icon, I'm going to use the image I created under images and user PNG, and I'm going to need to do some small updates to this. I want to have it a certain size, and if you remember that anchor problem, so I want the true location to be in the middle of the marker, of the image. So some small things here. Size, scale size, the origin is going to be at the beginning, and the anchor is going to be at 10 and 10, so the size is going to be 20 times 20, and this middle point is going to be at 10 and 10. And now with this icon, I'm going to give it to our marker, and I think that's it. So refresh the page. Nothing happens, but we have an error. Okay, this doesn't help me very much. So what is the error here? Can anybody spot it? Oh yes, I forgot this. The origin and the anchor are point locations. The other ones are the sizes. So small difference there. And yeah, it does say something about that, but then it jumps somewhere in Google Maps file and tells me where the problem is actually happening. So it doesn't tell me that I made a mistake here. It just points out the error that is happening later. Okay, so this is now my location. Rather boring, but if you have ideas to make it more cool, then be my guest. And let's actually go and make the location of the points look also a little bit different. So now I think they are this default style, and I want it to look a little nicer. So we are going to go to our draw points and do similar thing for our icon here. I have a target PNG, and for the targets I want them to be a bit bigger. So again, time to exercise this these properties of the icon here. And so let's see, does this one work? Okay. Icons are not especially beautiful. They were just done in PowerPoint last night. So it's not, don't expect some Picasso. But it's better, I think, than the default style. And if I'm going to zoom in and out in the map, you see that the marker is indeed pointing its middle part to the true location. So this is important because otherwise, when people are playing, they wouldn't know to aim for the bottom part of the picture. And if they're going to play with the high zoom level like this, then the bottom part may be even 200 meters away from the middle part. So it's going to be creating confusion, and that's why I'm stressing about this small aspect there. Okay, but in my mock-up I had also some ideas for showing some kind of special targets there. And how about we do that? So in our original points, I will add another parameter here. We call it special, and let's make one the winner. So at the moment, point number 1 is actually the one you have to find. So just for testing purposes, now I want to know where the winner is going to be. Another one, I'm going to give it another property, and let's say this is the 50-50 special button. So basically when I'm going to display this one, I want to display it a little differently so that people know they get a bonus when they are hitting it. And the last one, I'm going to call it public. So it's this, they are related to this Who Wants to Be a Millionaire thing. So 50-50 is going to remove half the targets, and public is going to have the audience predict some target for me to go at. Okay, but the winner stays secret, so I'm not going to display it in any special way. But for the other ones, however, I want to show them a bit differently. So I prepared also some kind of sorry? Yes, I decided not to do that.
Okay.
Because, so I had in the mock-up also the phone call, to call for somebody, but both of those things, the audience and the phone call, are essentially the same thing. It gives you some probability for something. What makes it much more interesting in Who Wants to Be a Millionaire is the actual call. Like, who's going to be on the other side? How will they sound like? It's something new, something that you don't get just from the audience. And also, is it going to be helpful or not? It's entertaining for the audience to hear somebody like, oh, why do you ask me? I don't know. So it's somehow here, because everything's going to be automated, it would look more or less the same thing. So I decided not to have it in the end. Change from the mock-up. But good point. Good that you mentioned it. So now the URL by default is going to be this target. But let's just say if the point is going to have a special property of public, then the URL is going to be something else. I think it's called like public PNG, and okay, we can put an else if, or it could actually have been a switch case instruction, but I will put maybe in some later exercise, you will comment on the code and try to find bugs or try to find things that would be done better differently. So take a close attention to things like hard-coded paths. This is something you don't really want to have. You would like to have constants everywhere. Because if here instead of public I'm going to write public, then it's going to be very hard to debug. So if I will use this constant in many other parts, I would prefer to access it by some variable that would warn me if I type the variable name wrong, because it gives null pointer or something. Okay, so a bit of change of the URL here, refresh. So now two of them look a little different. Okay. And one thing that I really don't really advertise doing, but I will do it for simplicity here. I don't want to work with these points anymore. So these will disappear. This is not a global variable. It will just be used to draw the points which become the global variable targets. So I want the point special property to move to the Google Map marker. I want to use it from there afterwards. I want basically this marker to know that it's special. At the moment it just has an icon there. I could check its URL and see if its images/special, but that's kind of not a good way to work with things. So I'm going to add to this marker another attribute, which is the special attribute from the points. Why I don't advertise doing this is because this marker, the Google marker object, doesn't have a special property. It's not documented anywhere. So when people read this code, they will be like, what does that special mean? It's something I added. I extended the Google Map object there. So now I'm going to refresh the page, and I'm going to inspect this GTargets array and look at the first one just for... Okay, so the first one has a special property of winner here that I can later access and do functionality based on that. This one has 50, and the later ones have undefined special property there. So now I'm just going to use these targets in the later parts of the code. Okay, and just to make sure this still works, yeah, my marker is jumping off screen and back on screen, so this is pretty neat. Okay, but my game just starts like that, and I had some kind of start screen for it. Maybe for today we don't focus on that, and I would leave it for tomorrow and focus on this part now. So yeah, I think that way we can get something real today, something working that you can test, and focus on these game panels tomorrow. Okay, so you notice this problem. I really have this problem now. So I move this marker out, I don't see it anymore. What will the user think? Maybe he wants to play a game somehow generated by some error somewhere else, and he doesn't see himself anymore. So we would need a function that can display everything at the same time. I don't know, maybe we use it when we initialize the page, because note now I'm initializing the map at the given location, hard-coded location. If you're going to play in Kuopio, it will hard-code the location in Joensuu and nothing is around. So you will just have to scroll to Kuopio, know that where Kuopio is and so on. So I would like a function that is going to show everything that is on the map, and I hope I find it. Okay, I found it. Yes. For that, I'm going to need another function. Yes. I will call it getBounds, and it's going to get the bottom left, top right corners of the area where we have things on the map. So the parameters are going to be these marker objects, and it's going to return just the bounds. Now, thankfully, okay, this maybe should move like that. I think you see it better. Thankfully, Google Maps has some things to help us here. An object called Google Maps LAT-LNG bounds. And all you have to do is iterate through all the markers that we have and extend this bounds object with our if markers position. And we just return these bounds. Okay, how about we make now our on-location update function get bounds of, and here we need the parameter of all the things, all the targets that we have, but we want to have also the user's location inside this, right? So let's see how we do that. I think we can simply concatenate the user's location marker to this one, user location marker to this one. So JavaScript has this concat function for arrays, but it will need another array as a parameter, and now our Google marker is just an object, so I'm creating the array in place here. A bit confusing maybe, but I think it goes. And then the Google map has a function called fitBounds that takes a parameter of this bounds object. So I'm going to save it, refresh, and now everything's on the map. It's just that I'm out of place. So I'm going to move the latitude up, and now I see everything again. So every time the location is changing, the map is updating to show everything, everything on the screen, right? This may be what we want to happen or may not be what we want to happen, because let's say that the user wants to see what is here, but then his location changes. I have to zoom in again. Zoom in again, and then, okay, location changed again. So this kind of, you don't want the map to do what it wants when the user wants to make use of the map. So this is quite important usability problem, and I recommend going to this events from Google Maps. And okay, this is not what I wanted to see. Really finding the sample that I want to show you guys. There seems to be a lot of similar links here. Okay, this is the one. So on the right, you're going to see all supported events that can be detected with respect to Google Maps. So when I'm moving my map, it figures out this mouse move event is happening. If I move out, it's this mouse out. If I just move over it, it's the mouse over. It's going to detect click. It's going to detect zoom changed, many things. Dragging is being happening here. So I'm going to write a code that detects if the user is trying to do something on the map. And if he is doing something with the map, then I'm going to disable this forcing of the viewport change, because the user wants to see something there. I think it will become clear. We just need to write some code first. Okay, so let's have some states here. Okay, so let's call it map states. And this map states is going to be an object, I think. Yeah, and let's say that it's going to have a value of all in the beginning, like you want to display everything, and we need a way to toggle this. So I'm going to go back into my main function, and I'm going to add to the map an event listener for when the user tries to drag the map. So this looks like we see here. Okay, event listener, and the event is going to be on the map. I'm just going to use this drag start property, and here we have to say what we want it to do when the user drags the map, and I want our map state to become, let's call it user. Okay, so we have map states all and user at the moment. Again, something you would like constants for. And here on location update, if our map state is set to all, then please do that. Else, okay, let's be precise. If our map state is going to be user, what do we do? So if the user has moved the map, we don't do anything. So let's see how this would look like. I'm going back to our example. Okay, some error here. So Google Maps event, add listener. Add event listener is also a function, but it comes from just plain JavaScript. You can add event listeners to anything in your HTML page. Okay, so now the map is changing its location, and now user wanted to move the map. So now the map doesn't change its location anymore. So again, it was this kind of way to make sure that whatever the user wants to see, for example, zooming in somewhere, and then his location slightly moves somewhere, it's not going to show everything anymore. But how about if you want the old functionality back? So we're going to have some kind of designated button for it, or maybe wait a certain amount of time, like I don't know, half a minute, and if the user doesn't interact with it anymore, we might resume functionality. But this is debatable. I think it's much better to have a designated button for it, because the user wanted to do something, he can revert to previous functionality if needed. So let's add a button for this. I'm going to make a div for the content, and I'm just going to say button, call it map button. Let's give it a function toggle map. So it's just going to revert back to the old functionality once pressed. I'm going to create this function here. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to put the map state back to all, and I think I should call this onLocation update. So fake that we have gotten a new location so that we don't have to wait for the functionality for the new coordinate to appear. So I'm going to force this call somehow. So onLocation update, and this event needs this kind of coord object there, so it's maybe not the best way to do it. So we have now this basically I'm preparing an object in this format that the onLocation update function is looking for, and I'm calling the function instantly after the toggle map button is pressed to update the location at the current location of the user. So I'm not giving it any special case there, but we will see what happens if we do that or if we don't do that. And note that the map is here. So if I now zoom into the user and I move the user back down, nothing happens. I move him back up. I press the map. Instantly you see both of the things, both of the items. And move the user down and this map functionality has resumed. Now this map button is kind of, where does it fit on our phone? I mean, it should be over the map somewhere, right? So this is, this will need some CSS, and I'm going to assign the button a class of btn. This is relatively important what I mentioned now, so okay. I'm not going to explain some basic CSS things. But for some reason it's not assigning the... Okay, now it worked. So now the button is on the top right corner here, over the map, but it's quite small. Now this is a cool trick here. You can press this device toolbar and it changes your screen to mimic the size of a Galaxy S5. You can change some kind of other mobile phone from here, or an iPad, or even have the screen in this kind of responsive mode where you can choose any kind of screen size. Now if you check the Galaxy, this map is kind of hard to see. If you put the iPad, it's really hard to see. So these are things that you have to consider when you're building for multiple applications. And I'm going to teach a little bit about this now, and I'm going to introduce you something I don't know if you have heard about it, but instead of using pixels here, you can use some other unit of measure, which is in terms of the browser's width and height. Let's see what this means. I'm going to put here maybe 7VW for now, for the button width, and for the height, let's just leave it this way. Okay, so let's put a bigger value, 15. So now notice that my map button is wider here. Not much wider, but a bit wider. Let's put it 17. Okay. And the height, let's put it the same. So now my button is here, it's this size, but if I go to my responsive mode, note that the button shrinks or grows depending on the screen size. I'm gonna do the same for the font size. Let's put it 5VW and see how it looks like. Okay. So font size also grows and shrinks with respect to that. If you're gonna use simply pixels here, okay. If you're gonna use pixels, that the button will basically stay the same even if you're gonna play on a smartwatch. So this is now my smartwatch and the button covering everything on the map. So I don't actually, embarrassed to say, I don't know how these things are called, but if you Google VW, Vmax, VH, so W for height, for width, H for height, and max for maximum between all of those, okay, they're called viewport units. So they are supported in HTML, and you can make applications that are independent of the screen size more user-friendly. Okay, but for now, let's keep it like that. And how about if you want to check what is near to the user's location quickly? So now I just did a bunch of clicks on the map. So I went. Okay. I went like this. It takes a lot of effort for the user to figure out what is next to him. So we could make our map handler also have another mode for the nearby. But I think it takes a bit of time now to implement, so let's just keep it this way for the moment. But at least once we have our user location nearby, and let's say that the user moves just a little bit, the map is not constantly going back to its original space. It only does that when I press my map button here. Okay. But let's continue with more interesting things. So how about we try to reach a target and collect whatever is under the target. We will need a function for that, and our function should be called every time the user moves, basically. So somewhere here, we need to check if, okay, we need a function to get the nearest visited target. So let's call this nearest get nearest unvisited target, a function that we don't have yet, and we will write it soon. But then let's put a fixed threshold if the nearest distance is less than 20 meters away, so visit the target. So basically, we will need a function to get whatever is the nearest point to us, and if that point is less than 20 meters away, visit it. So that's going to be the simple logic here. And our function for get nearest unvisited target is going to be returning an object called nearest. I will initialize this one with the target of null and the distance of -1. So this is now our initialization, but what I want to do is iterate through all the targets and for each of them calculate the distance between the user's location and the target's location. So we have our getDistance function from our measurements.js file, our Haver sign from last time. And I'm going to put two properties here. The targets, the if target's position, and the position of the user's marker. So now, if this distance is less than, I'm gonna do a minimum search. So I'm searching the item with the smallest distance with respect to me. So if our distance is less than nearest distance, or nearest distance is equal to -1, so basically this would initialize the value, the nearest distance is equal to our currently calculated distance, and our nearest target is equal to g targets of I. So I'm going to return our nearest component. So it's going to contain the nearest distance, and it's going to contain also the target, which is at the nearest distance. So quite straightforward thing here. All right, and now let's put a placeholder also here for, okay. Let's just test at the moment. I like to test all the time because if I'm going to build too many functions, then if errors appear, I don't know how to find them. So I prefer to build steadily each component here. So I'm going to move the user marker a little bit. Okay, nothing is happening. Oh yes, I'm only debugging the nearest if the distance is less than 20 meters. So I remove that for the moment. And now I'm getting here some values. I'm changing the latitude a little bit. So now the nearest, whatever it is, it's actually farther away than before. So I moved it away from whatever was the nearest. Let's try to go in reverse. Okay, still away. Yeah, a bit hard to see here. Okay, so my latitude, let's move my latitude down a little bit. So 49, 48 here. Okay, it's 269, 47, 258, 4. So I'm getting closer to this ask the audience button basically. And now let's put 38. Okay, 86 meters away from this one, getting there. Oh, okay, 39 meters away from this one. So almost there, but my longitude is now wrong. Okay, too much. So now the marker is under this marker, which is a problem. I want to see my location no matter if it's, any time I want to know where I am. But now we have a distance that is usable for visiting the target. So let's go back here and fix these two things. So go to main, and what we will need to do for our marker is add the z index value. This just means what is, okay, z index means what is on top of each other on the map. The others are defaulting to 0, so if we're going to give a 1, then we're going to see our marker all the time. Yeah, I think you know what I'm talking about. Okay, so that's one thing. Yeah, sure, let's refresh. Okay, it's not working. Oh, sorry. I'm editing the wrong function. This function is for drawing the points on the map. I wanted the user markers. The user marker to have this z index. So now I see it over the other target. Fine. So going now back to our location handler, I will reintroduce this nearest check if it's less than 20 here, and now I want a function to reveal, and let's make an animation here. Reveal animation of our nearest target. Okay, so our nearest contains the target, which is a marker, and I want to reveal it. So let's see how that will work. Reveal animation of a marker. Yeah. Okay, let's make a very simple case. So, switch, markers, special property, remember. I want to use the icon, okay, so, yeah, case. Winner. So if we are going to find the real thing, then I'm going to put the URL with the value of images. I think I called it right PNG. Okay, and otherwise I'm just going to keep the URL equal to images wrong.png. So I want to replace now my icon with this new icon, depending on if the marker was the correct one or not. And I'm going to do that by, okay, let's get the old icon first. So getting the old icon from the marker. And I'm going to put the old icon URL to our new URL that we are calculating now. And we are going to put also, yeah, we are going to assign this new icon to our marker. So marker set icon. Okay. I don't like this name, old icon there. So our updated icon. The reason I'm doing this is because I want to get all the properties of the old icon. This anchor and the size of that icon. I don't want anything to change, and I don't want to reinitialize our icon with these fixed values all the time. So I'm taking the old icon from the marker, properly formed, and I'm just changing its URL and reassigning it with the wrong PNG or the right PNG, depending on its special property. So I'm going to save this and refresh the page. Okay, so it happened extremely quickly, but there is Waldo here. Okay, and this happened, how to say, instantly, because the user started to play at the location where Waldo is. Okay, so if I'm going to go now and move the user a bit north, maybe I change this 2 into 3, and I refresh the page, then basically this whatever is here is not yet visited, but if I change it back into a 2, the user moves down. Okay, now the Z index is, okay, some Z index problem there. Yeah, now basically visiting the target revealed the target there. Okay, ignore the fact that now we are visiting the audience button. Yeah, I just wanted to see if it works to change the marker's properties. Okay, but anyway, for now the animation is very premature, like very boring. It just rapidly changes the value, but we will change that, so we will focus on the rest of that today and finish how this animation looks like. But to work efficiently, I don't want now to play with this horrible tool anymore. I hate it. Okay, I'm going to create some helper functions for me, because I just can't find a very good location faker anymore. I tried looking. I'm going to make a function to fake my position at a new position. So very simple function. Sorry?
You will do it with a click?
Not with a click, but I could do it with the click. It's a very good idea. I could do it with a click. I'm not going to do it because it takes longer time to implement.
Okay.
But I'm going to, you will see what I'm going to do. So I'm going to again call our onLocation update function with our new position latitude and new position longitude, whatever it is. So this fake position, if I refresh this page, and I'm going to call it fake position of G targets, and I'm going to take, let's say, the first, okay, element 1 in the list, dot get position. I moved the marker immediately there. So if I want now to visit the second target, okay, it was the previous one. The third target, the fourth target, and if you remember, the 0 target is the correct target. So let's move to 8. So the 0 target looks different. It has a different icon there. So it knew how to visit it correctly and show us that we got something correct there, right? Okay, so that's one function that helps me very much. I want another one because I also don't like to do here a lot of stuff. The reason I don't do clicking also is because when I'm going to click, even if I'm very precise, I might be wrong. In the zoom level, I might be farther than 20. So it would help much better than this, but I want a function for simulate playing. Again, a bit shameful, a bit a shame that we don't really need these functions part of the project. I'm writing them only for debugging. At the end, they will disappear from here. But let's take unvisited. Let's take some unvisited targets. Get unvisited targets. Okay. If unvisited length is not 0, fake position to our first unvisited target, get position, and I think now, yeah, I'm going to put a set timeout. This means that whatever function I write here is going to happen after 1 second or 1000 milliseconds. And the function that I'm going to write and call here is actually simulate playing again. So simulate playing is going to get an unvisited target, take the first unvisited target from whatever list this will give us, fake its position to that, and then simulate playing again after 1000 milliseconds, after 1 second. Now this get unvisited targets is something we don't have at the moment, and we actually don't have yet the concept of visited target. So we do have the target looking a little differently there, but I want here to mark down that this marker is also visited as a value of true. So now if I'm going to get a function to write a function for get unvisited targets, I'm going to make an array iterate through all the targets. Okay, just a second. I think it's better if the screen stays like that for people in the back. If the target is visited, is not visited, add him to our targets array and return our targets targets array at the end. So just putting everything there in an array and returning it. Now refresh the page, no errors there. Simulate playing. Okay, so I just stand and watch, and I see how it's kind of teleporting himself to the targets in some fixed order that that was given there. Now this may seem like, oh, but we lost so much time making these functions. Yes, but if I'm going to test using them, I'm going to save much more time than playing with these horrible numbers all the time. Okay, so this is now something, but the problem with this way of doing simulation is it always starts at the first target, and the first target is always the winner, so it's gonna stop the game way too soon. I don't want that to happen. the concept of game over should be also considered. So let's see if our special is the winner, then we had this game over variable, set it to true, and in our simulate playing, if game over is not true, then we continue to simulate playing. Otherwise we stop because we found the real target. So if I refresh now here, it finds it and then it stops because it finished the game over. But to simulate more effectively, I want to shuffle these unvisited targets so that every time I simulate, I'm going to get a new way of visiting the items on the map. So you will hopefully understand why I do that soon. I'm going to write a simple shuffling function for an array. Bear with me. So I will have a while loop. I took the function from somewhere. But it seems to work. So you take, for every index, you take a random item, I think, from the remaining side of the array. And, okay, I have to say I don't know what it's doing. But there are some different ways of randomizing arrays out there, and I don't have energy to concentrate now on how this one works. And I was bad, I didn't even write the source for this file, but it was from some forum, so it's not that critical, I think. Okay. Refresh this, simulate playing. So now it's going to the targets in some random order. And when it will, okay. Okay, so it stopped without checking one target because it found the real case. All right. Good, so this will be quite helpful function to play with, to test basically. Before we end, we will now focus on some visual things because this game feels kind of boring. I want animations and sounds. So I downloaded some sounds and we will need to write a function for it. Let's call it sounds.js. And put some functions here. Okay, first of all, I have to go to my index file and include these sounds. So in HTML5, you can use this audio tag, give it an ID. Let's call it the ID of right when we find the correct thing, and yeah. And inside we need to specify the source, and it's going to be again, I downloaded the sounds. I downloaded from a website called flashkit.com, and I added them in the sounds directory here, and I have the right and wrong MP3 files that I want to play. So write.mp3, and you need to specify the type equal to audio MPEG or MPEG for some reason. Okay. And the same thing for the wrong sound. And in the sounds.js file, I want to have a function for play the right sound. Get element by ID, the right ID that I gave before, and play that. Play right, play wrong. So a different noise when we are finding the correct one than when we find the the wrong one. Okay. So now if it's the winner, we know what to do, but if it's not the winner, as default, okay, URL is already wrong. It doesn't hurt to specify it here. It makes the code a little bit more readable. I don't want to do the game over, but I do want to play wrong and play right. Whew. Okay, play wrong is not defined because I am not including our sounds.js in the HTML file, and it's not playing. Okay, play failed because user didn't interact with the document first. Okay, it may be because the sound loaded too slowly than the user's location, but it might work if I fake my position. Okay, so simulate playing. Okay, I think it might. Yeah, that's if anybody was sleeping at the moment. It's like a wake-up call. Okay, a little bit more dynamic, but I want them to spin around. So basically, what I want the target to do is kind of like when you spin a coin, and then at some point after spinning sometimes, then reveal whatever is inside. So that's going to be the last thing I'm going to do today, and tomorrow we will focus on the rest of the game controls and how to start the game and so on. Whew. So bear with me, and sorry for no break today, but I will compensate the next weeks. It's going to be probably less long hours and less hectic than today. Okay, so yeah, so we have now play right, this reveal animation. So this is not really animating much at the moment, and let's have it do so. So I think that this is just fine here. but okay, yeah. I think we do need a new icon. URL is going to be URL, and size is going to be something weird here. New Google Maps size of, and bear with me for a moment, 30 times math, absolute value of math, cosine of index, and 30. Okay. The same will go for the scaled size. Yeah. Origin and anchor. Anchor is gonna be 15. These are points, shouldn't forget that now. Right, okay. So now we're gonna set the marker to the new icon. And I want this to have the index value coming from here, from the top. And I want to use the same technique as before. I'm going to use a set timeout function, in which I'm going to actually every 20 milliseconds, so quite rapidly, I'm going to call this same function again, reveal animation of the same marker parameter that we have there, but our index is going to be slightly increased by a fraction of pi. Okay, these may seem a bit scary, but maybe it's going to be your homework. Okay, so this is what's going to happen. A new, it's not really a recursive call. Okay, it is actually a recursive call, even though it's inside a timeout. But yeah, and we need a stop condition. We are going to repeat this as long as the index is less than 10 times pi. So note that index will start at the value. I'm going to start it at 0, actually. So now our reveal animation is going to be yeah, instead of just calling the nearest target here, it's going to also call a 0 for the index. And this index is constantly going to grow by a fraction of pi. And every time it's going to recall this function again with the new value for index. At some point it's going to go big enough that this call is not going to happen anymore. And note that the same index is going to affect the size, actually the width value of the size. Okay? The new icon is going to go here, and I don't think I need this anymore. At least not for now. Just let's see if I made a mess and if it still works. Okay. Oh boy. Oh boy. Okay, let's move our user a little bit up. Okay, interesting. Yeah, so some things are still happening there.
Scale size, two times the size instead of size and scale size.
Perfect. Yeah, good that somebody's listening. Thank you. The scale size is one thing. Oh, wait, maybe it's the cache problem. No. Scaled size. Okay. It's very weird. What is happening here? Anybody? Oh, okay. So scale size. Seems to be correct. The URL is updating. I have to say, I don't know what's happening. Let's log this value here for debugging, and also note that I don't really want this URL to change. Would it? Okay, let's just log this value and see what happens. Okay, the value looks good. So if I remove this scaled size from here, it was showing something. Kind of okay, but not what I want. Oh. Yeah. It's this. My mistake. So it moved the origin somewhere where the graphic was not even existing, probably. I don't want to debug it too much, but I think that's the reason. So if I go now here, now it looks much better. So yeah, some more issues. I don't want this sound to play multiple times. So now it's calling it every time this reveal animation is going back up, right? So this is one thing I don't want to do. So let's just say if index is equal to 0, first time that I'm going to call this, right? Then I want to do the case here, only then. All the others are just for visual effect happening here. But I will need still a URL. So in case our URL is not obtained from this special thing anymore, I am just going to take the URL the old, whatever the marker has. So I'm not going to replace it anymore, but I still have to do that there. Okay, hopefully. Okay, so now I'm not getting the repeated sounds anymore. And last thing to test, let's put the simulate playing a bit slower. I'm getting too much sounds at the same time. And try to simulate a few times. Oh, sorry. I pasted the fake position there, so I wanted to simulate playing. Well, that was fast. So, okay. And note that we still are treating these public and the 50/50s as nothing as nothing special for the moment. So they just look different, but at the moment they are not doing anything particularly special. So tomorrow, 50/50, the audience and the game controls, and hopefully there will be also time to package for Android. So sorry for lateness, but thanks. Any questions?